Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another spectacular show today, Robbie. Who do we got?
Just spectacular.
Just super
so
spectacular.
We're so excited about it because Limea Lurin and Amy Tarkanian will be with us to discuss the effort to clear hundreds of homeless encampments across New York City. And then, of course, Kim Iverson will join us later this morning. Now, we've been discussing Hunter Biden's legal troubles, and it looks like it's really heating up because even most of the mainstream media has entered the chat. The Washington Post, who's only a year late to the party, finally admitting Hunter's laptop is real just yesterday, though they say that the vast majority of data in nearly 129,000 emails it contained could not be verified by the Post's two security experts who reviewed the data for the story.
After they published that story, the Post published this one, detailing Hunter's multi-million-dollar business deals with a Chinese energy company that came to fruition back in 2017. Quote, while many aspects of Hunter Biden's financial arrangements with CEFC China Energy have been previously reported and were included in a Republican-led Senate report from 2020, the Post review confirmed many of the key details and found additional documents showing Biden family interactions with Chinese executives. They go on to reveal that CEFC and its executives paid entities controlled by Hunter Biden and his uncle $4.8 million. However, they say they did not find evidence, quote, the big guy benefited from the transactions, though they do have an interesting, the big guy being the president, current
Joe
president,
Biden.
Because he's in an email with Bob Alinsky where it says like 10% for the big guy. And there is evidence, there's lots of circumstantial evidence that the big guy's referring to Biden. They haven't proven that the money changed hands, but certainly people involved in that deal, which is a different one, believed that Biden, this was between the time he was vice president, was going to be involved. And he, according to Bob Alinsky, met with him and Hunter and Jim Biden, his uncle. But what they did find is that Hunter asked the building manager, after getting these millions of dollars in 2017, to make some changes to the way that his office was constructed, and to also to make additional keys for new partners that he referred to them as partners, and his partners were Joe and Jill Biden, among a couple of others. And so the business actually made keys for Joe Biden for this business that was being funded by this Chinese money. In classic fashion, with all of these stories, then it says Hunter actually never picked up the keys. Keys were made, and he asked for new signage, but he didn't pick it up. He just didn't follow through.
Wow.
And then they also report that then he was clashing with the manager because he was bringing people in through the side door, and it turns out one of them was a woman who then later sued him for paternity successfully.
Right.
And so you have this combination of just messy chaos and real corruption.
Real corruption. Yeah, and Joe Biden, we're not fully aware what the extent is of his knowledge or involvement. But Joe Biden, you have to remember, Joe Biden thought he was out of the political game. Mm-hmm. He thought he was done. He chose very publicly not to run for president in 2016, to step aside. The writing was on the wall that the party wanted Hillary. Hillary wanted Hillary. It was her time. And
Obama wanted Hillary.
Right. So
his own president.
He decided not to put up a fight, and he was going to go gently into that good night. Yeah. And you know what? There's temptation to make a buck if you're done anyway.
He made a fortune from the University of Pennsylvania, millions, right? For teaching or maybe $800,000 or something for teaching
just
half of a class
normal salaries for.
Yes.
What was he teaching? The football team?
Penn football, the basketball team. So if you think of Biden's mindset at that point, Joe Biden's mindset as post-politics,
right?
The way that we do this in the U.S. is you cash in on your name, and you don't do any work.
No.
You don't.
Golden parachute.
You don't need a key. You're not showing up to the office. But you get on a conference call. Right. You allow your name to be used to grease a transaction. Now,
Trump had no need to. He'd do that still as president. Yeah. He doesn't need to. He doesn't see that difference. It's not any normal political actor waits till they're done, and then not at all.
And it's not whataboutism to laugh at the asymmetry here. Like the same people who were so furious at the corruption of Hunter Biden, like, oh, it's fine that Jared Kushner, while working for the White House, was shaking down like sheikhs around the Middle East.
Right,
for money for his business.
It's not. You can't get around the whataboutism here. Yes. There's wild corruption among the children in both families. So that's just the truth. Anyway, journalist Glenn Greenwald tweeted in response, "Just effing amazing." Now, the Washington Post, 10 days after the New York Times, admits that the laptop genuine and uses them in their reporting, yet not one corrupt outlet has retracted the Russian disinformation lie that Biden initially banked this story on during campaign debates. However, the fact checkers over at MSNBC have found no evidence of this. Here's Mika Brzezinski after discussing Trump's claims that Hunter received money from Russian oligarch Yelena Baturina.
He goes on to repeat, I think Putin now would be willing to probably give that answer. I'm sure he knows. Trump's claims are false. We fact-checked them earlier in the show.
Oh, are you put at ease? Even CNN is half-heartedly covering the story. Did a write-up yesterday headlined, "The Federal Investigation of Hunter Biden Heats Up," while a legal analyst on the show said there's a real chance Hunter could be indicted over the foreign business dealings. Yeah, I can see this going with the media in a Republicans pounce on Hunter Biden direction, which is something they do when something I've often noticed, and other people on the right have noticed, that when essentially the thrust of the Republican criticism is correct, the media frames it as how Republicans are using this to get ahead, rather than about how they're just correct about the thing.
Well, that's how the media knows how to cover, particularly the political media knows how to cover any issue.
Right.
Like what's its effect?
On
what's
the
its
horse
effect
race.
on the horse race, and how are the different parties using it to their own particular advantage? Because then you don't have to get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the issue question. Glenn, of course, Glenn and I don't know if I've told you this, Glenn and I actually started reporting together on the story that led to him leaving The Intercept eventually. I wanted to take it in a more China direction. He wanted to take it in the Ukraine direction. So we're like, all right, so you do your piece, I'll do my piece. And I'm working on my piece, and the next thing I hear is, oh, Glenn quit. So it worked out for Glenn. He's done well.
He's killing it.
He's done well since then.
I ended up show all the time.
I did it. I ended up publishing my piece, which I think holds up pretty well. And one of the things that I looked at was the way that the Trump campaign kept inserting itself unhelpfully into the reporting of it and undermining its own story. And you even see that in this Washington Post story. They say, in 2020 we reached out to Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon to try to get a copy of the hard drive, and the Post says they either ignored or rebuffed us.
Right.
And you often saw, so the Wall Street Journal in 2020 was working on a story on all of this, and if the Journal had done a piece, then you might have seen the reaction from the media be slightly different. Though I think there was still going to be pressure, to dampen it down. But it would be harder if it was in the Wall Street Journal. And Giuliani got frustrated that the Post didn't have their piece out yet, so he runs over to the New York Post.
The Journal didn't.
Right, that the Journal hadn't put their piece out yet. And then so the Post.
Right.
Now, and is it fair that the Post doesn't have as much credibility as the Wall Street Journal? I don't know. We can decide whether or not that's fair, but it's a fact. And so with his impatience and then with his refusal to share the information with that's what I don't understand. Like, you had this hard drive. Like, why not share it? And then that gives you even more reason then, if they don't report on it, to say, look, you even have the hard drive, but to not share the documents.
Sure.
And then say, why aren't you reporting on the documents? However, none of that.
Yeah, Giuliani, shady character, Bannon, shady character, but it's still, despite that, it's incredible, and it just becomes more incredible now the years after. The extent to which the messaging was, don't read this.
Right.
This is a lie. You will absorb this lie and spread it like a disease or something that you heard from. Biden was able to appeal to authority. He was able to say, look at all the experts, people, the analysts, who are saying this is disinformation. I don't even have to say it. Just listen to them. Right. And the behavior by the tech companies. This is the best case for the the badness, the wrongness of content moderation policies is how Facebook and Twitter handled the story. They handled it in a shamefully bad way, in part because some of the people in key decision-making roles, as far as I can tell, were themselves Democratic Party activists or had been in Democratic administrations and had easily transitioned into content moderation in a very concerning way.
And their reasoning was false. They said this violates our hacked materials.
Right.
What wasn't actually hacked, unless you have the broadest possible definition of
in which
hacked,
all journalism is
right, because
not allowed.
The repair guy doesn't have like legitimate access, and so therefore, but that's not what they mean by hackers. But even though I didn't have access, back to the other point, even though I didn't have access to the hard drive, I could still compare what was public and make phone calls to confirm that, okay, this email says that this event happened. It was like a firefighters event, actually. This is in my story. So I called the firefighters. It's like, did this event happen? Did Joe Biden speak at this event? Did this Russian person, come to the event? Like, there was reporting that could be done based on what was already public, plus the Daily Caller's kind of corroborating. I think it was Devin Archer or somebody else's emails. So even though the Post and others can say, look, we didn't have the hard drive, still they still could have done more reporting on it.
Yeah.
And didn't. And that was an editorial choice that they're now paying for.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
Well, coming up next, we'll tell you what's on our radars. Stick around.